Hello, this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network every Thursday at 1 p.m. And you could also find me on the Conscious Resistance YouTube channel and Conscious Resistance website. So today we have Andrew Demeter, who is a truth teller, truth seeker, investigative journalist, and founder of Teen Take, his YouTube channel, where he posts some awesome videos on various subjects pertaining to liberty. So, oh, by the way, I don't have my video, which really sucks, but we'll have to deal with it. So, Andrew, so tell us a little bit about how you started off on this path to, searching for answers.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for having me on. But as far as how I got started, the real first recollection I have of sort of, following this path of liberty was a while ago, about 2 years, maybe 3 years even now back. It was during the summer. I was at a friend's house and we were just going through YouTube like any, teenagers do on a summer day when it's nice outside and we're inside on the computer. And we were searching and somehow we stumbled across a Jesse Ventura video of his old show Conspiracy Theory on True TV. And so we were watching it. It was the episode specifically about the Denver airport, and that really sort of led me on this path of questioning, what are all these weird symbols here in this place, and why are all these political high-profile figures buying property out near Denver, and why is there supposedly this underground bunker, this doomsday bunker, and underground city under the airport? So a lot of this, as well as, Illuminati symbolism, whether or not that's, factual or substantiated, but all these sort of different ways to question, reality and daily life that I hadn't previously done otherwise, sort of led me on that path. And then also I had an experience, sort of, if you can call, taking around a handheld video camera of your dad's at holidays and interviewing family members and sort of editing some of that on a computer. So I had sort of some of the video experience of editing and video making, and then also the this new path that I sort of started to follow.
Cool, nice. And so it was a slow progression, starting with your father's video camera and now to editing awesome content. I watched a couple of your videos, and I can really tell the amount of effort that you put into it. It's just short videos, but like very good quality. It's something that I strive to make in myself.
Yeah, quality over quantity.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, I think the Nancy Pelosi video, like one of your most, I guess that's what you're known for. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
So yeah, can you explain that, like how that happened and what you said and everything? Because I think that's a great story.
I think it would take me about a full, hour-long segment of the show to explain the whole backstory and everything, but a basic synopsis of it was C-SPAN, one of my teachers at school, she notified me of this contest that C-SPAN annually hosts. It's called Student Cam. Basically, it's for middle and high school students to create a documentary, which is really like a mini documentary. It's only 5 to 7 minutes, I believe, discussing any sort of relevant political, social issue, etc., that has political implications. And I decided to make that film about GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and I called it We the People Genetically Modified. Long story short, I was one of the top 3 winners in that contest. C-SPAN flew us all out to Washington, D.C., at the C-SPAN Bureau in Washington, and then on the last day of the trip, while we were there, we got to meet with Nancy Pelosi, of course, and I had the question in mind ahead of time about the NSA and her, basic flip-flopping dependent on what political party holds power in Washington, and I just wanted to call her out on that, because I figured, when am I going to get another opportunity like this to, point blank fire a question at this politician, and I'm glad that it sent shockwaves. It got like 250,000 views on YouTube, and my hope is that it gets people thinking that politicians, they can be hypocritical, and not only that, but they're so vulnerable. Really, they're humans too. We think of them as these superhuman characters, when in reality you can just ask them a question and you can tell that they're easily lying. Because, you know, just judging by their hand gestures and fumbling of words and everything. So that was basically that confrontation. It was also funny because in the video itself, you can see there's two different angles, one of me holding up my cell phone at the beginning, and then a second one of a C-SPAN cameraman there who was filming the event. And basically, after the whole thing happened, we were walking outside, and one of C-SPAN's employees said, "You know, I know I saw you filming this sort of confrontation. Are you planning on posting it to YouTube?" And I said, "You know, why does it matter to you?" And he said, and to paraphrase, he basically said, "Well, we wouldn't want to damage our relationship with Pelosi's office." So I found that really revealing as well. C-SPAN, you know, touts itself as being unbiased, and then, you know, they don't want to hurt their political ties with a particular leader. And so then eventually, too, my cell phone video, half of that video actually didn't record. The second half of it, too, didn't record because I ran out of memory on my phone, you know, just my luck. So then I had to try to wrangle with C-SPAN basically to get back the footage because they said they wouldn't send it to me. They had an agreement that they couldn't record audio in the building we were in the Capitol. And I found that kind of funny too, and I have picture proof of it because they had this, you know, shotgun mic on the camera they were using to record. So, you know, it was a completely facile and fake argument.
Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of people who are driven to, you know, seeking the hidden truths of reality come to terms with the hypocrisy and lies of politicians, and that's, you know, that's definitely what you know, also kind of got me realizing this too, and then you begin to wonder, like anyway I did, like, is there a possibility for a politician to do good? Like, are all politicians, can you say, categorically evil and wicked, or is it that they have good intentions, but that the how do you say, the unintended consequences just reverberate and they cause damage unintentionally? You know, what do you think about that?
Well, you know, to begin with, just on a philosophical level, I guess, I don't think that it's good to ever, you know, stereotype a whole group of people and label them. You know, not, in my opinion, not all cops are bad. And as you said, with politicians going into office, I don't think it's right to stereotype them all as, you know, nefarious. I think that there's a good portion of them that probably go into office or go campaigning with, I wouldn't say nefarious, but just self-interested ideals, and you know, how they can basically profit themselves at the expense of the people. And then I think there are some people genuinely out there who try to go into office for change, but then, as you said, their goals get mutated, and it becomes this sort of egotistical trip, and they just basically get corrupted.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, with myself, you know, in my journey to voluntarism, and, you know, learning about you know, Austrian economics, and learning about the nature of government. So yeah, so public schools, right? Take public schools. I mean, you know, you can say that you know, some people would come to the conclusion that, you know, it's just about indoctrination and propaganda and everything, and that the teachers are evil and wicked, and just trying to you know, you know, mentally enslave the kids. But I think that perhaps it's not the teachers' fault, although they do work there. They I think for the most part are kind-hearted, try to teach the kids, trying to educate the kids. I think the problem is the structure, and how much it hinders their flexibility, right? And how rigid the curriculum is, which to me is a reflection of the government involvement in any sector of the society. You know, you take any sector, and, you know, that's what you get, because, you know, when it becomes controlled by the government, it basically becomes a monopoly, loses all accountability, and loses its how you say, the drive to excel, to improve, that any, you know, private business would have, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, You know, it's just really unfortunate. It seems like you said, you know, these teachers are victimized almost. You know, some people would look at them and say, you know, oh, you know, the teachers are supposed to be, you know, responsible for, you know, not only teaching these kids but also making them want to learn. And like you said, I think the fundamental problem is this government control, because you know, for example, the standards of education are basically control. Well, the standards of education are controlled by the state, and instead of, you know, fundamentally evaluating the curriculum, for example, and saying, you know, oh, maybe we no longer need to teach this, you know, very complex form of math, for example, because, well, calculators, technology has innovated to the point where, you know, it can basically do it for us. So instead of, you know, evaluating curriculum on, you know, a basis of relevancy, it's basically just evaluated to see, you know, evaluated by these politicians who really aren't the people in school. And they say, oh, well, you know, let's not evaluate it so it's better. Let's just sort of tweak the statistics. So, for example, our, you know, educational standards appear higher than that of, you know, the next country. And, you know, another thing that sort of is related to this that I find funny is, you know, Obama's whole free college proposal, sort of like the Federal Reserve printing more money. People are like, ooh, free money. But in reality, it's inflation, and people don't really understand these very complex concepts, even though, you know, free college would seem to be a simple concept that, you know, taxpayer money is actually funding free college, and it's not free. So, you know, those are sort of just some of my thoughts, if that helps.
Yeah, you know, I forgot to ask you. I usually ask this in the beginning, but what you know, what books or podcasts or online personalities have influenced you the most? You know, other than you mentioned Ventura,
Jesse
right? Yeah,
Ventura.
Jesse Ventura. Other than him, any other like books or articles or, you know, shows that really influenced you?
Books I should be reading more of, really, but it's not too political of a book, really. But I recently just read a book called The Food Babe Way by Vani Hari. She's all about food activism and everything, and food transparency, which to me I think is one of the most important issues. You know, it has a little bit less to do with politics, but it's still very much so influenced by politics and this conflict of interest and the corporatocracy, of course, of these corporations basically controlling everything in our food supply, and it's pretty frightening, the amount of intimacy they have with government. So that's one book that I've read. As far as other shows, we were mentioning Anarcast. Since I was a guest on Jeff's show, I have watched some more of his, you know, conversations with people, and those are very enlightening. Otherwise, I occasionally watch RT. One of my favorite shows was Breaking the Set. Unfortunately, Abby Barton is no longer producing that show. I've sent her a couple emails to try to interview her, and hopefully I will be doing so in the next month or so. But so those are sort of some of my inspirations. And like I said, I should be reading more books.
Yeah, actually, I did see the Fran Drescher video that you made. That was really amazing. How did you get her on, by the way? Just curious.
Well, unfortunately, you know, I wish I could tell a tall tale like a politician and make it sound more interesting than it actually was, and make it sound like I had some, you know, secretive insider tactics or a special connection to Fran. But in reality, I just saw a couple. I interviewed her like a month and a half ago or something, and in December or so, I think it was around there, she was doing some Indiegogo fundraiser online for her organization. Freudian slip. No, just kidding. Anyway, she was kidding. I'm kidding. Anyway, she was doing this online fundraiser, a crowdsourcing or crowdfunding project for her organization called Cancer Schmancer, which is about mitigating cancer. One of the subtopics of that being food, of course, genetically modified organisms. You know, whether or not there's the relation. But so, long story short, I donated X amount of dollars to that campaign, and myself and about 7 other people or 5 other people were in a Skype call with her, and we got to ask her one question. So I just wanted to take advantage of that, and I didn't even tell her that I was recording, actually, but her assistant actually did see the video and wants me to be sort of a youthful voice of the organization. So that's an interesting opportunity as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you know, my my path into this field, voluntarism, I started out very interested in nutrition, holistic nutrition and juicing and alternative cancer therapies. That was really my fascination when I was a teenager. I'm an acupuncturist and Chinese herbalist and Eastern nutritionist, so I studied that myself, and then I did an additional reading and research after that. So that's really what got me into learning about the whole GMO topics and about vaccinations, which is really big into the news right now, and learning about Monsanto and DuPont and Syngenta and all that, and then I got to realizing, like, a lot of people, they vilify these enormous mega corporations, and rightly so. But then again, the problem, like a lot of them say, it's all for the bottom line. They all say it's all for the bottom line. They don't care about human life, quality of life. It's just all for the bottom line. But in essence, it's not really profits. I think that's evil, right? Because the core, the local family small mom and pop shop, they're trying to make a profit, right? They're going for their bottom line, right? But I think what really people they don't really make the connection, especially those Wall Street, what do you call it, Occupy Wall Street, right? Like they're going after J.P. Morgan and Bank of America and all the big banks, which is good and all, but then you have to ask the question, what is giving these corporations power, right?
Absolutely.
Because in the end, we're not forced to buy their products. Like, you can do your research on GMOs. You can find out what foods are GMOs, and you cannot eat them. You cannot buy that, right? And so in the end, if people do learn about it, do a boycott, they can't survive. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that you hit the nail on the head right there. These corporations, of course, not to undermine or discount the nefarious nature of them, because I do think some companies the profit is a legitimate. Well, I guess there's a difference too that we should establish between striving for profit, which is basically the whole essence of establishing a business, and then this as Fran Drescher called it in the interview, this insatiable desire for profit. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think capitalism is the problem. I think the problem is government, like I said, with Monsanto getting so intimate with these corporations and establishing this joint government corporate monopoly, if you will. And like you said too, in a free market this wouldn't happen, because if people didn't like Monsanto, they'd go out of business, as they should, if a company is producing things nefariously. So I think that's absolutely the case. And like you said, at the bottom of or at the end of the day, it all comes down to the power of the dollar. And that's obviously a whole nother thing that we could go into. The Federal Reserve and money and how that works. So basically, I agree. I don't think corporations are necessarily evil. I think the role government has in, giving them a sort of judicial immunity like they do with Monsanto, or this sort of monopolistic precedent, I think that is more concerning.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, because in the end, they're just corporations. I mean, they're just businesses, and they still rely on your patronage, right? And if that's so, then I can't really see how you can blame them. Like you can learn about McDonald's, and you watch what's it called, Super Size Me, right? Super Size Me. You learn about how evil it is, and I mean, I don't eat at McDonald's, but some people do, so they're in business, and if McDonald's gets big because a lot of people buy their products, like, I don't have a problem with that, because they're not using any coercion or violence to force people to buy their products, right? But it's kind of funny, like me being a voluntarist, when I mention stateless societies, and what do you think would happen if there was no government? And one of the main complaints that I hear is that corporations or I guess just big businesses would gather together, collude, and just like maybe they'll militarize. You know what? I don't know if you saw one of my recent debates I had with a friend. One of his complaints, this is like true. He said, what's to stop McDonald's from buying tanks and weapons and forcing you to buy its products.
I mean, that's basically what Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is. No,
Yeah, it
but
is.
like you said, I would argue sort of on your point that corporations, that we have the free choice to choose them or not. To some extent, I do agree, and I think we obviously still have the free choice to choose them. But like I said, this intimacy between government and private industry, like I said with Monsanto specifically, Obama in 2013, it might have been. I'm not sure. I'm not good with dates. But he signed into law the Farmers Assurance Provision, which literally gives Monsanto judicial immunity. So I think that's, you said using coercion and everything. I think that is sort of a case of using coercion, that they're not responsible like a business should be for, the effects of its products and, being ethical.
No, you're exactly right, and I'm not defending Monsanto in the slightest at all, because they are a special interest group, and they are, catering to the monopoly on violence, which is government, for sovereign immunity or protection, right? Like you said, I think it's the Monsanto Protection Act, I think it's called, right? Like buried into the Farmers Bill, like where if a person is injured by a GMO, they can't be sued, right? I
But they
think.
guarantee you the products are
But
safe,
they guarantee, yeah,
all natural.
and they don't want to label it either, right?
Exactly.
And
But they're so proud of their science. They go to the extent of patenting it. They're so proud.
yeah, 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 yeah. So it's it's definitely steeped in a lot of hypocrisy and contradictions. But yeah, I talk a lot about the free market again, and just when you give businesses freedom to practice or to run their business the way they want, to hire whomever they want, to pay them whomever they want. You do away with minimum wage laws. I really can't see how there will be enormous results in prosperity as a result of that. We look out into the economy, and I mean, who looks out into the economy? A bunch of people just trading. That's basically what the economy is. Just a bunch of people just trading back and forth spontaneously, right? There's no central authority saying you have to buy from this person. No, we choose who we buy stuff from, right? It's fundamentally
Or so we would hope.
yeah. I mean, fundamentally it's anarchic. We have no central authority choosing for us. We still have that choice. And so I think that it should always follow that when people make voluntary choices, that there will be prosperity. Like, how can you think that if you take that equation and you involve violence and putting guns to the heads of employers and entrepreneurs, how that would have beneficial and productive results, or increase their productivity? Like, how can I don't understand how people can think that. Have you
Yeah,
encountered it?
it's crazy, and it reminds me of a story that I recently covered as well in Colorado, I believe it was. There was a bakery there, and basically this customer ordered or wanted to order a cake there that said on it "God hates gays" in icing, and he wanted to order that cake, and the bakery owner, she said, this defies my religious beliefs. I'm not going to do that. And basically this guy, because he didn't get his way, typical of someone who likes government or uses it to defend itself, he went to some division of civil liberties or something, which is sort of ironic. And he said he tried to file some lawsuit or something, and I don't know if it's still ongoing or if it failed or what, but it's just ridiculous. Like you said, exchange should be voluntary. We should be able to associate an exchange with who we choose, not having to be forced to serve a customer. It's absurd.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a very good example. And I think a lot of people, a lot of my family is included, which a lot of my family is considered Democrat. And if I were to tell that situation, like could a restaurant, if they wanted to, only cater to white people? What's wrong with that? And they say, no, that's horrible. That's immoral. That should be illegal. But again, in the end, if you think about it, who is really being hurt in the end? Is it really the black people, or is it really the entrepreneur? I mean, the
Exactly.
employer, because he's immediately cutting out a portion of society that could be his patrons, right? So
Exactly.
in the end, it's hurting him.
That's the point that I made in the video too. The businesses, the companies that tolerate the most people will make the most profit. And again, going back to the definition of business, the goal is to create profit. So ultimately, it's hurting the business. Now, it's sort of like a fine line, I guess, because people say oh, discrimination, but at the same time, it's hurting the business people. So that's the business person's choice, not to say I agree or disagree with that, but at the end of the day, the person should have the choice to choose who they do or do not want to serve.
Yeah, just like we say, the customer has the option to where they want to buy, so that the business owner should have the option whether he wants to take on that customer, right? And it kind of reminds me of when people say that women are discriminated against because most of the top CEO positions are men, right? and so it leaves me wondering. And also they say that women are paid like what, like a quarter less than men on average, something like that. And so if you think about it, like if that's true, if women are indeed paid much less, and they're equally competent as men, in those fields, why isn't it then that these businesses would want to hire these women in mass and pay them that much less to save money, right? like if they're really the same, at the same competence and intelligence level. So I mean, it's not to say women are stupid. I'm just saying that different people have different inclinations to work. Like I don't hear the feminists complaining. There's not enough women in the construction field. There's not enough women garbage women. There's not enough. There's not enough. Working in the sewage factories.
And I think it would be fair to say also that if they don't like what they're being paid, they're free to leave that job too. They're not being forced to stay there. Now, of course, that's not to say they might be dependent on that, of course, for an income to live their life. But there is also that freedom associated with it of voluntary association.
Yeah, definitely. Like. That's that reminds me of some of the Marxists and the communists / socialists who think that the employer is exploiting the evil capitalist pig, exploiting the worker for their own selfish gains, and paying them slave wages and things like that. But again, like you said, it's a completely voluntary contract. Nobody forced the person to work there, right? They have options where they want to work, right? There's so many different things. You can reduce the standard of your living, the cost of your living. You can improve your skill set, get a different job, open your own business, right? So you have many different options, and so there is no force whatsoever keeping you there. So if you really don't like it, then you are free to leave. It is a completely voluntary contract, right?
Yeah, except, I think we're assuming too when we're saying this, all this stuff about freedom. I think that's, assuming that government isn't involved, of course, because of, in most cases, if not all, when they do become involved, then it becomes, an issue of intervention and going against the free market, which, is our natural inclination.
Yeah, like talking about the Federal Reserve, like you said, a lot of people, just because that's all they know. That's all they know is the Federal Reserve controlling the money system, the monetary system. They can't imagine any other way. I think that's the appeal to antiquity, logical fallacy. If it has been, it must always be, right? and so people, and then I tell people, like, what is the goal of the Federal Reserve? Like, what's its mission statement? So their mission statement is to preserve the value of the U.S. dollar, right? So,
I think they've sort of failed at that goal.
Yeah, 98% destroyed, right? At least. Like, how good is that?
Yeah, it's absurd, and going back to tradition, that's also a common thread that I notice. Oh, this is the way it's always been, so we must keep it that way. Except for the people who voted for change with Obama, but. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that people just can't think outside this, predetermined box of thought that they're really born into, geographically and in every other way. And, this is why things like books and the internet are just so empowering because, like we mentioned earlier, these things are decentralized. Well, at least in the case of internet, not really books, but you know, these things, or the internet's so decentralized, it allows all these different points of views, and it's just so enlightening and empowering.
So, all right. So before we sign off, let me just ask you real quick about your views on like homeschooling and unschooling, and if you know of any kids that have been homeschooled or unschooled, and if I don't think you've done a video on that, right?
I actually have. It was a while ago.
Okay.
I honestly, I'm a little rusty on like some of the talking points that I used in the video. But basically, I think it's a great idea. You know, if parents have the time and are able, I think it's a great way to go about. Obviously, I have no personal experience with it, but you know, I don't see why anyone wouldn't. You can, you know, stray away from what the state wants to teach you and all this state curriculum and actually, you know, learn what you're interested in. And I think that's really all that we retain in life. We don't retain, you know, these mathematical formulas and you know, all these diagrams and history books unless we're passionate about it. Of course, that's the caveat. You know, you retain and learn, or you should learn what you're passionate about because that's all that you end up retaining, because you know you hold it with a certain precedence, for lack of a better word, or a certain, you know, importance to it, and you make a personal connection with it. So I think that's more important than sort of just unilaterally, you know, jamming all these arbitrary facts seemingly into students' brains, and you know, so they can pass a certain test and, you know, advance to the next echelon of schooling, and then just continue down, you know, probably go into debt and become, you know, continue to work your way back up until death, basically, to end on a positive note.
Yeah, like real quick, let me just say my kids are 4.5 and 2.5 year olds, and you know, I'm definitely gonna, you know, do the unschooling or homeschooling, more akin to unschooling probably. And I get the common critique of people saying, but how are they gonna learn math, history, science, you know? If they don't go to school, how are they going to learn that? I'm like, they're going to learn what they're interested in learning, right? And that's what's important. Like, if you were forced to learn something, can you really call that education? You know,
Mhm.
or is that more akin to indoctrination, right? And
Exactly.
regurgitation of
And
facts.
one of the arguments too that I used in that video that I did on homeschooling was, you know, if you, and I read it in a book. I don't claim to, you know, have the original idea or anything, but in this one book I read, I believe it was like a compilation of essays on voluntarism, and it was like something about parenting too. You could find the book on Amazon if that helps. But anyway, one of the arguments used in that was, you know, if you miss the day of preschool in which you learn how to count from, you know, 1 to 10, or learn all the colors or letters of the alphabet or something, you know, are you never going to learn that? If you learn if you learn on that day that the color of the sky is blue, you know, and if you miss that day, are you just never going to learn that? You know, it's crazy. We learn so much from instinct too, and language is a great example. You know, nobody forces into our heads language. We, as children, learn and assimilate to language because of our curiosity. You know, we want to learn, we want to communicate with others, and you know, again, nobody forces it into our heads. Instead, we learn naturally because that's what we're born into, and we're curious and everything. And then lastly too, I hear a lot, you know, again, this isn't speaking from really experience with homeschooling, but people will say a lot too, you know, oh, if you homeschool your kids, you know, they'll be socially inept, and they'll have no social skills. To which I say I am the counterexample, because I am in, you know, regular schooling, and I'm pretty much still socially inept. So, that's my parry to that argument.
Yeah, I was kind of shy and quiet also. I didn't really care to, you know, make all that many friends. I was like more into you know, studying astronomy and theoretical physics, cosmology, and Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy. So oh yeah, and I also started the chess club from ninth grade to 12th grade. So
There you
so
go.
I was the popular, you know, jock kid, you know.
Just like me.
Yeah. But awesome. So why don't you let people know where they can find your work?
Sure, youtube.com/teentake, TEENTAKE is probably the best place to go. Other than that, I'm also on Facebook, Andrew Demeter, Demeter. And basically, I don't use any other social media, so YouTube and Facebook are probably your best bets.
So you're not a Twitter guy?
I have one. It's slash Demeter Andrew, but I don't really tweet too much. So, but if you feel so inclined, go ahead.
Yeah, I never really got into Twitter myself either. I just I don't know. Just I mean, I guess it's useful, but I don't know. Just some things that I can't I can't get a hang of.
It's for all the trendy kids.
Is it? Yeah, I guess so. But awesome, Andrew. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you.
So this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network and the Conscious Resistance YouTube channel. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.